All right, I'd like to call the meeting of the Dover-Sherborn Regional School Committee for November 5th at 6:32. Maggie will be joining us momentarily. So can I start with, are there any community comments? No? All right, thank you, seeing none. Let's get to reports. Let's start with the middle school report, and he's not here.
Here he is.
There he is, sorry.
On cue.
Good timing. And Mr. Cott.
Right, thank you. Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here. Oh, thank you. I taught math formally in a previous life. Our student rep, Thomas Barbosa, had planned on coming, so I'm not sure what happened, but I'm sure he's fine. He was just going to speak about, he and student council, actually, I'll do my spiel because Thomas is walking in right now.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll let him do his spiel. I just wanted to point out a few things in our report. We had 4 teachers who, thanks to DSEF, went out to High Tech High in San Diego. Amanda Rogers, Kathy Simino, Anna Hurley, and Wendy Lutz. They had a fantastic trip, came back very excited, and are looking forward to presenting out to the staff. Either on December 2nd or at one of our early release days. Another thing I wanted to point out is our special subjects, art, technology, engineering, and music, have moved to a competency-based grading, and they had their first go at it this term, so those grades should be coming out later in the week. They did do interim reports in a similar manner, and they were very well received. Our science and technology departments were very engaged in STEAM Week. We had, just for a few examples, 6th grade built, and there are pictures in the report, they're Mars rovers. 7th grade was very active in creating a flip grid where students reached out to friends and family to for anybody who was involved in a STEM-related career. And the 7th grade has also used the Google Expedition Cart, which is also through the DSEF grant. It's augmented reality, and I had the good fortune of being up there. Anna invited me up and got to see the Grand Canyon, got to see a couple of other sites, and I forget what they are off the top of my head, but it is really, really cool. You just 360, you turn around and you see everything that is happening.
The paddles?
No, this was just the glasses.
That's what you see.
And Anna will put a target there, but then you can just scan around, and it is just awesome. So that's a few of the things that are going on here at the middle school. And we have Thomas has joined us, and he can share with you the student report from the middle school.
Hi. So I've mostly just focused on things that are going on with student council and upcoming school events. So in December, the week before Christmas break, we have a Spirit Week planned, and we're still just throwing around ideas for that, but it is happening. And we're also throwing around plans for a movie night. And the original idea was for it to be the Friday before Christmas break, but most people will be off on vacation then, so we might rethink that idea. And also we have 8th graders of the DC trip coming up later in the year, and the CAGs have their community service day coming up. Also, in the guidance office here, you may have noticed that there's a fish tank, which I have donated to the school. Of course, there's no fish in there yet, but sometime this week I'll be adding the fish.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Well done. Very well done.
So Thomas, tell us more about the CAG's Community Service Day. When is that? Do you know?
think it's sometime this month or next month. I forget the exact date.
And what usually goes on that day?
Oh, so each different CAG has a different focus. Like the animals CAG will be going to the zoo that's near here. I forgot the name of the zoo, but we'll be doing things for like the primates, like the monkeys and stuff at the zoo. I don't know exactly what all the other CAGs are doing, but each CAG has a different thing.
That's great. Awesome.
That's cool. I have a quick question. Are you a fish expert? Is that like you know about fish?
Yeah, I know a lot about fish. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but yeah, I know a lot about fish.
Okay, well, you know more than I do about fish.
Have you seen the tank at the high school?
No, I haven't.
In the library. That's a beautiful tank.
Yeah, so Kelly and I'll make arrangements to have you come visit and see it in our library, and can share some ideas, because we also have students who do the work in maintaining the tank. So I think it would be a great connection.
That's actually my plan. I'm planning on having like a volunteer thing.
Awesome.
Where students can volunteer to take care of the tank.
Very good.
That's great.
That's great.
Thank you so much, Thomas. And I got to tell you, so we love hearing anything you want to share with us when you come. It's great with us. We just like to hear about what's going on from the student perspective. So thank you.
Thank you. And,
Well done.
Yes, really well done. And we're happy to have you back every month, Thomas. I know I emailed you earlier, and you totally do not have to stay for the whole meeting. So when you're done, you're welcome to head out.
You're off the hook.
We're not that interesting, actually.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Thank
Thank you, Thomas.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Scott, did you have other stuff to
Nope, that
add?
was-
Did people
that
have
was it.
questions or comments? Because I always do. I would love, I'm really interested in what the takeaways from High Tech High were. I would love if maybe you could share with us, like maybe next time you come or even the next month's report, like there are 3 to 5 main takeaways or something. I just think that
Absolutely.
I'm fascinated by that. I'd love to hear more.
Anna Hurley loves to share that type of information, and she's very good at it. So
Yeah, yes, but don't have her put it in one of those flip things. I could not make them work on the links from the
no,
packet.
we'll get it.
And technologically challenged.
We'll include it in the report.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would also, you talked about having a parent who came in to share some skills about grant writing. I
Yes.
was wondering if that's something you're planning to do some more of, because I love that idea.
That was done. Dan Cook came in from DSEF because the students are looking to write more grants. We've had a few student groups write grants in the past.
To DSEF.
To DSEF
Good.
or positive.
Okay.
But just to give some insight on what the grants should include and how to go about doing it, put it together.
And that came out of the sixth grade social studies team is doing a project-based learning. They both went out to the Buck Institute this summer for that training. So this is part of their launch, and Dan Cook was a community member engaging the community in conversations and problem solving. So that would be another great presentation too, is hearing about how they're taking ancient civilization and making it real, but recycling and grant writing and all of that stuff.
Yeah, that sounds really fascinating. I'd love to hear more about that. And the only other thing was the Google cart thing, Expeditions cart. Is that just for the science? Is that just for science?
Science is very good about sharing. So they would absolutely.
I just don't know the technology, so you can use it for lots of other things?
I believe you can, yes.
I know in our school we have that Google Expeditions cart, and they have the program for ancient Rome and ancient Greece, and that's been a really big addition to the ancient worlds, which I know they're studying in sixth grade too. So it's really got quite a lot of applications once you have that technology. Is awesome.
Yeah.
And it's moving fast.
Yes.
The technology is advancing so fast. Just 3 or 4 years ago, you'd just have the goggles on, and it was like a 3D, circular space, maybe 360 degrees around, and you could be looking down on the pyramids, which was very cool. But now,
You can look
over
up,
at
down, over.
Chickering, they've got these panels that go with it, and it forms a grid around the user, so that you don't, step into some kind of what looks to be dangerous. Like, you can really kind of get lost in this. It feels almost like you could lose your sense of space and where you are. And with this, I was obsessed with it one day. It was really very cool. But if you click on the button, it kind of shoots you down to the thing that is of interest to you. It's like it teleports you. So then you're right there.
Wow.
It's really,
That's really cool.
The technology is moving really fast in that way. And I think what's important, and I think you were maybe kind of alluding to it, is that how do we know that our teachers know that that's there and use it?
Yeah.
Because I really do think there are, as Maggie said, so many different applications. It's just a matter of, but you're saying they are using it,
Yes.
obviously. So that's good.
And they're going to demo it on December 2nd, too.
Oh, good.
Workshop
Oh,
on it,
perfect.
so
Right.
K through 12
Yes.
can-
Oh, that's an
can see it in
excellent.
action.
That's a
Very
great
cool.
opportunity.
Very cool. Anybody else have anything? No?
I just have like a clarifying question for myself. When you're talking about competency-based grading, are those not letter grades anymore, or are they based
They're
on
not.
a rubric?
They're based on a rubric.
Okay, so what is the range of the grades that they get for those classes?
It's similar to MCAS.
Okay, so like a 4, 3, 2, 1 type of thing?
Yes.
Okay, nice.
Yes. They're very excited about it.
Those grade, oh wait, no, at the middle school doesn't matter anyway.
No.
No, that's fascinating, that's great.
Okay.
None of our grades really, and
Well, they do.
They matter,
relatively
but they don't
speaking, they
count.
don't. We don't
Yeah.
have a GPA. Or
Yeah, exactly. So.
We want
That's a good
growth.
way of looking at it.
Growth mindset.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. John.
Thank you, Ms. Huff. So the high school has a lot of things going on, and I should say that Wyatt Goldfisher, who is the high school rep, can't be here tonight because he was participating in an MIAA boys soccer tournament game. He sent his regrets and was, I know, going back and forth with Ms. Sharon on.
He did send a Google update.
He did.
Sent a memo. He would like us to know that that they are right, and I really appreciate his memo because that's quite diligent, even
Yep.
though he's
From the
out.
sidelines of the.
From the sidelines of the soccer field.
He did it before.
Before. Okay.
He did.
Good.
He did. I know he did.
I can see the date. He did it last night at 8:30. The student council is running a dress-up Halloween costume, and the prizes were given out for the top 3 best outfits. That they are choosing some charities to support for Spirit Week, which will be the week of November 18th to the 22nd. And that as part of Spirit Week, they have chosen some dress-up days, for example, PJ Day, Raider Day, etc. So it sounds like they're really excited about Spirit Week.
Yeah, a lot of good things happening. The math department had their annual unveiling of their costumes, and they were members of Stranger Things, which was fantastic. And we had some.
The video's really
We had some great student costumes as well, so it was a lot of fun. And Dr. Keogh was touring the building that day with me and got to see some of that in action, and it was fun. It was really fun. The kids were great about it and really respectful of it, and they had fun. So that was great. So. Yeah, a lot of things happening right now at the high school. I mentioned in my report on the curriculum something pretty exciting. We had some students attend the MassQ conference to show some of their coding skills and their design of an escape room, which was really fantastic. This past Sunday, we had the annual Jazz Brunch, which is always an awesome event. So many talented kids, both a cappella groups, concert, vocal ensemble, jazz band, a lot of individual opportunities for kids to showcase their talents, and it truly is one of the best events of the year. It's just so nice. It's in a relaxing atmosphere, and the kids are able to express their talents. So that was fantastic. This coming Thursday, beginning Thursday through Saturday, we have our fall play. Ms. Bergeron and the students and cast and crew will be putting on Midsummer's Night Dream, which will be fantastic. We also have a number of our teams invested and involved in postseason play. Boys soccer played today against Scituate. Unfortunately, lost 2-1, but had a great showing. Girls field hockey, as of about 15 minutes ago, was up 3-0 in their game and should move on. Girls soccer will continue their tournament run tomorrow here on Norris Earl at 3:30. Our cross-country team has had some outstanding performances, and they will be continuing. Some of the members, the top performers, will continue racing this weekend. And football had their, what we believe, and we're doing a little history check, might have been their greatest comeback in school history. They were down 34-7 at the half and ended up beating Middleborough 42-41. As a result, Emily Sullivan has been politicking really hard to have Kirby Ryan be Player of the Week in Metro West, which isn't just obviously our league, but the whole area. He had 7 touchdowns passes, which was fantastic. We had a terrific showing of our golf team. Cooper Evans actually took first. He shot a 71 in an incredibly difficult golf course in which he won in a playoff, a one-round playoff to secure that. So there's just a lot going on there. We also just finished up our first term, so that obviously creates a lot of busyness, and we've got a lot of our kids have put forward their applications for early action, early decision. We are conducting a lot of our guidance seminars with our upperclassmen each week. This past month, we also did freshman meet and greets. It's part of our guidance curriculum program where we meet with small groups of freshmen, have a little snack for them. They get to meet the entire guidance team, administration, adjustment counselors, just to let them know that, we're there for them and to kind of get a gauge as to how they're doing. And then from a faculty standpoint, in addition to our curriculum, what we're doing, we're highly invested in our school start time changes. As a result, we are looking at a couple new schedule proposals for next year to take into account our later start, and then to also work with our extracurricular opportunities after school so that we can balance it and still maintain a reasonable day for our students. So faculty's been engaged with a lot of those discussions. We just had our faculty meeting today to go over student focus feedback. We surveyed a number of kids and then actually had focus groups, brought kids in and asked them about what types of schedules they would like. What do they like about longer blocks, shorter blocks, having a break, no break, et cetera. And very shortly we'll be putting forth a proposed schedule to Dr. Keogh for his approval.
Thank you. Very thorough. Any questions? Yeah.
Really thanks for coming out to the jazz brunch. I know that the students really they really like having you there and being able to kind of show their efforts. So that's, I think, is extra special to have you. Thanks for coming out.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great too because you get to just see the kids and they get to perform and sometimes they'll have their solo opportunities within the sets, and it's really my pleasure. It really is, and I've told Judy this before. It's one of the very best events that Focus supports each year. It's a great community event. We've got a bunch of kids who are also athletes who get to participate in that program, which really, I think, highlights the inclusiveness of the Jazz Brunch.
The tweets were awesome as well. Did you put those out, Maggie?
I put some tweets out.
Those were excellent.
I tweeted some.
It's a great place for people to, just to catch a snippet of his performances. I think you caught every group that performed, which was awesome. And
get Evan Strauss's whistling.
I did get some whistling. That
Excellent.
was very
I didn't see
incredible. I think I described it as varsity whistling. Yes. Right? I think he should get a letter just for the whistling.
Yeah.
The last thing that I wanted to say, because I know that Ms. McCoy will talk about it in her report, but I just wanted to thank Beth for bringing Petri Elo to the district. We had the opportunity to work with him when we were in Finland, and he was fantastic. And having him here at the school, in all of our schools, was truly an honor, and it was great and was really well received by, I can speak on behalf of the high school faculty.
And middle school. It was just fantastic. So.
Just to follow on something you said, someone sent me a link this afternoon to the Metro West News to vote for Kirby.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone has gotten that link and they've all voted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
it's like the All-Star game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. Who's the last member to
All-star
be right
voting.
to be placed in? So, a lot of great talent, and as usual, awesome kids. Just awesome kids.
So I'd love to say thank you so much for talking about, the play and the jazz brunch, which I'm very sad that I missed. But I have to say, so it's a little personal, but my daughter participated in the jazz brunch and sort of what DS fosters, the performing arts fosters. I was not there because she was performing in her high school concert. College concert, her first college concert. So it's lifelong skills and lifelong love of things, which is, I think, so important. But I was really happy that you brought those up because I sort of looked at the report that you presented, and it was sort of an optics thing because there were 7 pages of sports. And I appreciate that all the work that Emily did.
Right,
awesome.
That's just her portion of it, right.
When I totally understand that, but it's just about sort of the optics. So thank you so much for bringing stuff up here because I think there's so much talent in so many different areas, and it's really important to highlight all of that.
With all of our kids, there's crossover. They do both, everything.
Yeah.
A lot of kids do. Some kids don't.
Exactly.
And it's all good, whatever works for them. But I
Absolutely.
think it's important that we sort of highlight that there's all these other opportunities. Right. Thank you. Do we have subcommittee reports? Judy.
Yeah, I can. Just give me a second, so I don't stumble. I just wanted to give a very brief report on the School Start Times Task Force Phase 2. First, we want to thank people who have provided comments throughout the process for their thoughtfulness and participation. We've heard and continue to hear a lot of perspectives and a lot of voices in the process through a lot of different forms of communication, and it's really important in this process as we, sort of put together what this is going to look like. For people to collaborate, and to come together and be collaborative on it, and that's great. All the different subcommittees are meeting. We're, hang on a second. But the planning process has been really complex, and a lot of the pieces are sort of interrelated. And so the subcommittees are working together to kind of, one piece gets done, another piece gets done, and that's all progressing really, really well. John, I think you gave us an update about, is there anything else you want to add, or are we all set? I think that's everything, probably about everything you're dealing with.
Yeah, some of the extracurricular component depends upon our final schedule and what that's going to look like, and maybe even negotiations. And so there's a number of pieces that kind of fit into what that's going to look like. But we've already made some framework adjustments to when practices would start and end, and within conference, we just simply have to determine what will extra help look like under a new school start time setup, and we're hoping to build time into the end of the school day to do some of that, and also to alleviate some potential dismissals for our student athletes so that they're not missing academic classes.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I wonder if is it all possible to maybe talk about because there's a ton of work that you guys have been doing it hasn't been highlighted to a great degree. There's some exciting creativity around scenarios.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Where there are a couple out there. I know you've discussed those a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So one of the concepts we've looked at is this concept, and we actually borrowed it from what has worked quite well with the middle school for years, and you have an H block, right?
Correct.
And developing something called a flex block or an X block. It's not unique. Some high schools have it, but this would take place at the end of the school day, which would enable us to have some extra help sessions, some structured DR, so it would still be considered time on learning because students would actually report to a teacher and then could go from that teacher to the library or to the math lab or to work with a group of teachers. And by creating that system, we also then, when we need to for some of our longer away contests where we would have to dismiss students in order for them to get to those contests, they wouldn't be missing instructional time. in looking at our schedule scenarios, we looked at one model that had some flex time built in during the morning for perhaps for students to get a snack in the cafeteria, because as you know, we've been working with Janelle Madden on that. We're also looking at other opportunities for maybe a little bit longer passing time between classes. And then what we have come across is the belief and the value in break, that even though we would be starting later, student focus groups pointed out that it's not just the ability to eat, it's truly the ability to have a bit of a break where you can go to the restroom, you can drop something off, you can go to guidance, you can just, it's a guaranteed time to meet with friends, because sometimes during the day your schedules maybe don't coordinate or whatever it is you're doing. So I do think that we're going to end up with a schedule that will still maintain break. I can pretty positively say that, and a schedule that will have flex time built in at the end of the day for student flexibility to be able to do a number of different things without missing instructional time.
Yeah, and I have to say that I think that throughout this extremely complex process, we've really got an opportunity to meet our commitment to be sort of innovative, and look at what we do well and improve on it. And what you're describing is really an example of exactly that.
Actually, if I may, the X block that's being considered at the high school just has tremendous potential. Don't forget, in our strategic plan, we talked about advisories being important to us. And the reason for that, some of you weren't there for those conversations, Lynn, but the reason for that was that we realized over time and through research that, in fact, this time where kids have a home base, where they have a home base, it's unleveled, it's ungraded, and it's an adult that they begin to form a relationship within the school who doesn't have any impact on their grades. We really believe that's an important thing. This gives John the mechanism for doing that, and we've talked about it before, but that was one of the challenges. How do you fit this in? So you're right. Through this process, it's allowed John to take care of something. I call those twofers.
Yeah.
You know, he got a 2-for-1 out of the deal because he not only addressed some of his homework, extra help concerns, but it's also an opportunity to address advisory and who knows what else, because the creative juices are really flowing.
The potential to have high school students working with middle school students in the Xbox could be priceless.
Yeah.
That's another possibility. The other thing that's really important to mention here that I think people forget, and this quite honestly came to impacted me when I went to Finland, and that was a while ago, 6 years ago. But at that time, I actually was really obsessing about this idea that they have recess, because to me, it doesn't make sense. If the kids aren't on task, how can that possibly be a good thing? But what they would argue, and I agree with them, and I think Scott's work with the middle school in allowing those kids that short window of 10 or 7 or how many minutes is it?
It's 11, but it'll grow to 14 next year.
Okay, so thank you. So 11 minutes, that 11-minute period after lunch, the reports from the teachers and the kids has been and from you.
It's fantastic.
That it's been a win-win, and that the kids come back more focused. So I think when the kids tell us that they need that time, that it's not just about getting something to eat, but it's actually to take a breath, which is very much a Finland model, is good stuff. So yeah, there's been a lot of innovation that's coming out of this. It's really, really difficult for us to communicate the depth of the conversations and the thinking that's going on in the conversations around transportation, in the conversations around after-school activities at the middle and high school, or at the elementary schools. I can't emphasize strongly enough to people at the elementary schools, even though that's not really our domain here, but I have an opportunity, so I'm on camera, that we are, in fact, very much committed to making sure that our after-school, Sheeta and Dita, and before if necessary. We don't anticipate it being necessary, but you never know.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly after school, we will expand it as necessary. So we know that that's a challenge, but we don't always have the opportunities to express this. It's
Right.
one of the hardest things is how do you tell these two broad spectrums of people about all these things that are going on? You can mail it home and hope that everyone reads it, but we
Right.
all know that, I mean, at our last joint meeting, we had people who'd never heard about this whole thing, and it's been going on for a while. So thank you so much, both of you guys, for all of that, and Michael and Judy for being on that committee.
Yeah. Are there any other subcommittee reports? We're good? Great, thank you. All right, let's go on to Beth McClure, please.
Sure, thank you. So it was only 10 days ago that I gave you a fairly extended report and lots of information and lots of presentations. So since then, out of those 10 days, I spent 3 with Andrew Mudge, our alum, obviously related to Alan, capturing all of the great things that we're doing in DS across the system in our classrooms, teaching and learning. And a video that you will get to preview and see for the first time if you come to the evening with the superintendent next Wednesday. It's a big red carpet debut. And it'll also be tied into our full day of professional development on December 2nd. And then that leaves 7 days. Another 3 were with Petri, ELO, last week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at all 4 schools. And that was great. He did some co-teaching with 6 of our teachers across the district. He had done planning with them over Google. It's amazing what you can do these days. And then came in and taught alongside with them. He did workshops on student-centered strategies, phenomenon-based learning, which is basically project-based learning, but he insists it has to be interdisciplinary and relevant to children and the world around them. And did some question and answer sessions at the middle and high school. I think there was a lot of conversation about schedules and what do they do in Finland, and I'm sure you can add more to that, but it was a great experience. I think he took away just as much as he provided. He was, talking about great kids. He was just blown away by the students and how invested they are in their education and how kind and welcoming they were, the level of professionalism of our staff and their investment in teaching and learning. So I think it was a great sharing opportunity. Happy to address any questions, comments.
I'd love to just get some specific examples of the type. I mean, you sort of touched on a lot of the specifics around, the differences and the learnings from, the Finland system. But do you have like specific examples
Sure.
of things that we can implement and?
Well, I can give you specific examples, and then it's a matter of, whether the community at large thinks that we should implement them. So, the idea of 45 minutes of instruction followed by 15 minutes of break time, where students can get up, exercise, get a snack, process information, see friends, I think is a takeaway. Homework in Finland is really based on what a student needs to practice. So it's not everybody gets the same assignment. It's, students really having that metacognition to know that, yes, I've got this and I need to stretch myself, or I don't have this yet and I need to go home and practice, or I need to spend some time with the teachers. Their curriculum is similar but different. Their skills are prioritized, the communication, collaboration, being able to come up with questions and dive into research. Those are the primary drivers of their teaching, and then the content comes underneath it. And unlike in Massachusetts, where our content standards are this thick in books, theirs are narrowed so that, yes, you cover general topics and general ideas in history or science. You really have an opportunity for kids to drive what do they want to learn about this topic while they practice these skills.
It was the engagement. The lessons he co-taught was all about having the students be the active participants. They were the ones that were driving the lesson with guidance from the teacher.
Right. So emphasizing those skills was something I wrote about in my,
yes.
about he specifically said to us, he did a training with us as well as the teachers, but with the leadership team, he specifically said, for example, communication and collaboration are really high priorities for me now as an educator in Finland. Those are skills that I think everybody needs in the real world. And ironically enough, those are also in our portrait of a graduate. So he spends time kind of focusing on that at the start of the lesson. Today, we will learn about X, and we will dive deeply into that content. But equally as important, I will be paying attention and hoping that you will really be striving to be good collaborators, to work well with peers, to use your words and your body language when you communicate. So he does a little demonstration. So if I'm having a conversation with Anne, but I'm going like this, what do you think about that? Well, that's kind of rude and disrespectful because you're not looking her in the eye. So that becomes something that he deliberately focuses on that we don't necessarily, and yet it is really, really important. So I'd say that that's kind of a good example that we all saw. It kind of jumped out at us. And that's sort of how it is when you go to Finland. It's like, wow, it's really fascinating that that they do things the way they do. That said, they also do a completely different teacher training program, entirely different, which means less of an emphasis on teacher evaluation. It's a model that I don't think would work in the United States because we really believe that people continue to grow. We're big on growth mindset as far as that goes. So somebody may not be showing the skill set to be a teacher at this point, but they may eventually develop that, and we don't want to say they can't ever teach. Whereas in Finland, it's a very rigorous process to become a teacher, and if you don't get in, that's it. And so there are things like that. Extracurriculars do not have the same weight. Athletics, they generally don't have high school athletics. You could join like what we would consider like AAU type.
Yeah, they have some specialized schools where they do have almost like a magnet school would be. For a magnet school of the arts, they would have magnet schools for athletics or magnet schools for theater, magnet schools that do focus in on that. But otherwise, they follow a traditional European model of instructional classes, and then those things are truly outside of the school realm. One of the things that struck me was far fewer standardized tests. That's a really big difference. So in Finland, they really don't have any major standardized tests until grade 9. And then it's really only to give some feedback to the student and their families about potential different options for high school and beyond for them. So in grade 9, their grade 9 is almost still a continuation of middle school. It's really 10 through 12, and then some of those students will choose a traditional academic route, others will choose a vocational technical route. And in Finland, Petri said it's about 50-50. So there isn't that.
Choose at that point?
You can, but you still have some flexibility. But at some, they do, yeah.
But vocational does not pigeonhole you into not going to
college.
You
can't go to college.
Go on to higher education.
It's just a different route.
There's still that opportunity.
Oh, okay.
But it's of equal value.
It is of equal value.
Which I think is a big difference here. We have a certain stigma attached with vocational education, which to me has never made sense. One visit to some of these vocational schools, and we would all be believers because it's impressive what they are doing.
Minuteman is just state of the art.
The other thing, very few private schools over there. The private schools that they do have, they have to follow the national curriculum, just like public schools. Private schools here do not. So your independent schools can truly be independent and do what they wish to do. Private schools there still receive federal funding from the Finnish government. And the other piece of it is very little movement within neighborhood schools. So people have true value and trust that their neighborhood school is the right school for them. So there isn't a lot of shopping around.
You guys have an awful lot going on your plate. Well, you particularly have a lot on your plate. Sounds like there's so much rich stuff that came out of both the visit as well as the visit here. How is that captured and then operationalized into, hey, these are the takeaways that not only these are really neat takeaways, but these are takeaways where we see they can have some legs here. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're accepted, maybe they're not, but there's something that we want to put on the list to talk about a little bit more while things are fresh and it's not kind of way back in the rear view mirror.
Yeah.
and people seem to forget about it.
Well, I think that, we've presented about Finland in various lengths of presentation and varying levels of detail with, obviously with the faculty K through 12, but then our individual faculties. And so a lot is already happening, even, when you talk about the options and schedules, one of them is called the Finnish Compromise, because a lot of the ideas came from the educational system there. It's just, you hear the teachers talking about Finland quite a bit, or what would they do in Finland, and not that we have to be Finland, but it's at least getting them to reflect on practice. Last week when Petri was here, we videotaped both the co-teaching lessons as well as the workshops. And some of the workshops are the same, so you don't have to watch them all. But the idea is to get them out to faculty in my next newsletter so they can watch snippets of it, especially the one on phenomenon-based learning, which I think is probably the most succinct and powerful. And we also, December 2nd is our full day of professional development. And so we're going to hear from High Tech High, we're going to hear about project-based learning, we're going to hear about augmented reality, all from our own teacher experts. But some of the teachers who engaged with Petri last week will be sharing about their experiences. So
the plan is more of a kind of organic, let's really have a substantial exposure to these ideas, and then organically different educators can pick up on pieces and run with them and bring them back.
Yeah, and I would say nothing is entirely different or new. I think it just reinforces, if you remember that slide from one of the original presentations where you had all of the cross.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is connected, whether you're talking about playtime and challenge success, you're talking about family time, you're talking about student schedules. Right. It was really just a reinforcement of all of that from a different voice who's really passionate about his work and who's coming from a system where it's working well. As it is here.
We have a physics instructor, Mr. Bridger, who is probably just as innovative as any teacher in Finland, is exposing our kids to things that very few high school kids in this entire country. There's 2 schools in this entire country, one in Washington, D.C., and then Dover-Sherborn, that are able to conduct this lab that he does in conjunction with MIT and Howard University. We're the only 2. So there are absolutely already some pieces of things that are happening, and to have more exposure to that, and we're sending a number of our teachers to really fascinating places across different departments. But there's some pieces of innovation that are happening within our buildings that is top-notch.
And this is going to help bring that to light to other people.
To give more people that opportunity.
And I guess the thing I'd like to add in terms of your question and listening to you guys all speak is that, I think whenever educators have an opportunity to go somewhere and see something new, and then, there's always like options. And I think one of the options is like direct I can't even say the word.
Operalization.
Thank you. Here are our learnings and here are the things we're going to do. And I think that in education, and especially when we're trying to, really create communities and that directives following those kind of things are frequently in public education anyway, not like super successful. And I think that the approach that you guys are taking in terms of exposure, enthusiasm, giving other people an opportunity to go and see, not forcing it down people's throats, giving people a chance to digest it and see the benefits in lots of different ways, and then take ownership of the things that feel really good to them, is a way that's going to hopefully build culture and not compliance, which I think is really important in terms of these changes that you're suggesting and celebrating.
So, thank you, Wilson. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can I just quickly, you asked, said that we'd like to have the seal of biliteracy.
Yes. But there's no action required, or it's not on the agenda.
Well, so what I was going to request is, it seems to me that would go hand in hand with the program of studies, which is the next thing. So when we approve the program of studies, can we approve?
Sure, if you feel that's the right way to go, absolutely.
It would be built into that when the final, but that's not tonight.
Right, when we do the final. Does that sound like that would work?
That sounds great, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Andrew.
Yeah. So, I actually don't have. We did our best to kind of keep these streamlined. We just had a meeting of the joint committees not too long ago. You can read for yourself about the cooperative hockey ice, the girls' cooperative ice hockey team, and how that's expanded. It's a very good thing. That's all you need to know. It's a great thing, and our kids are being given the opportunity to play high school hockey at the varsity level, and they couldn't have done it if they hadn't been able to join with other teams. And I'm thankful to the MIAA for allowing us to do that. I think that's something they do well. Only thing I want to say about Petrie's visit and the start times and what Michael just said, you are absolutely right, Michael. This is a group of people who are really working hard. They are burning the candle at both ends, and I just want to publicly acknowledge that. It's a ton of work. It only comes from an inner commitment to this system. So we're very blessed to have these 4 people, as well as the rest of the leadership team, working for our kids. They were at the DSEF gala Saturday night. This was after a long week, and the team was there almost in full. People have competing life demands, but the amount of support that they show for this system and their expression of gratitude to DSEF for the Finland trip was, I want to tip my hat to all of them. And again, thank DSEF. That was an impressive event. It's always a lot of work. We actually enjoyed ourselves. It wasn't like work for us. We had a nice time and had a chance to say hello to a lot of people and to really thank them. And I think that we did pretty well. There'll be an interesting snow day message this year from somebody who bid on the auction item to make the announcement with Dr. Keogh. So now chances are I'll be in the background saying, no, don't say this. But we should be okay. So I want to thank DSEF for that. And then I didn't get the chance to mention, last but not least, the Sustainability Task Force. I did have the opportunity to kind of to pop into a lesson over at the high school with Joe Ruxton, who is a producer, an environmentalist, conservationist, and who makes films. And her most recent one is Plastic Oceans. It had a big impact on me, a very, very big impact on me. And I do believe as the person who's leading this district, I need to be more deliberate in my efforts to emphasize the importance of us being thoughtful, of us being as members of this one neighborhood called Earth, and that's a good way of thinking of it, that we need to continue to look at how we use natural resources or not, and how thoughtful we are in our messaging to kids. I think Dover-Sherborn's done a good job. I think we can do better. I think we can still do better. So I am going to put together a task force. If there's anyone on the committees that's interested, or if you know anyone in town who's interested, just have them let me know. And I'm not talking about, I won't be as good as Greta Thunberg, is that her name? But I am definitely interested in our thinking about ways that we can be more thoughtful. So I just want to share that.
About having students as well participate?
Absolutely, yeah. And I know there were kids who are interested. I think one thing that was interesting that the visiting speaker said was that the kids do seem to be hungry for it. They're waiting on us. Mm-hmm. They feel like we're kind of slow. Yep. Like, what's taking us so long to catch on? And I thought it was fascinating that she talked about the single use of these plastic cups. Now, I go every morning after my workout, I go over to Cumberland Farms and buy a coffee using this single-use plastic cups to see how this stuff ends up at the bottom of the ocean, or in the whales' bellies, or in the bellies of all the wildlife. It's awful. Yeah. It's heartbreaking to me, and it makes me realize that I'm part of the problem. Therefore, I would like to be part of the solution. And so, but in looking around the room, I noticed the kids are all using multi-use glasses, and I'm not, for example.
And there, I believe it was 3 middle school students who really supported advancement of the warrant that was passed as a municipal ordinance in Dover to ban plastic bags.
That was excellent.
That was
to ban the plastic bags. So I think we can do more. I think the kids I think we need to empower the kids.
Yeah.
This is what Beth has been talking about. Instead of using this word engaging kids, we're talking about empowering kids, because when they're empowered, they're engaged. Those kids were engaged and they were empowered.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I would like to see happen with this. I can't do it by myself.
Dr. Key, if I may, last week we had our environmental group Down to Earth. They had come to me with a presentation with regard to our single stream recycling and our different programs, and I know they met with Ms. Fattori too, who gave them the go ahead. So we met, and what I decided to do is allow them to present at the assembly. So 3 members, Evie Badikian, Margot Mehmet, and Jack Green, who are kind of the leaders of Down to Earth. There's many, many, many more students who are involved. They led a freshman-sophomore assembly and then a junior-senior assembly on what was expected in the cafeteria, the classrooms, and then eventually our lobbies too. And it's so much more powerful when it's coming from them. It was a great opportunity for them, and I can vouch that the Down to Earth group would be a great group to tap into, because
I was just writing that down.
they've done a lot.
Is there a science class at the high school in environmental science?
Yeah, Liz Friedman does environmental projects. She has an environmental science class, and
That's who the speaker was.
yeah.
To that class.
Yeah, that was her class.
Okay, because, maybe in conjunction with that class,
I think if we put the things in front of the kids as
They'll love-
opportunities,
oh,
I
yeah.
think that they will engage.
And because these kids are far better than we are. And
They're way ahead of us.
they're far more concerned.
They have more at stake.
They do have more at stake, and if you talk to kids, like my kids, for example, it's like it's one of their biggest concerns and anxiety producing. And so I am sure that it would be a great learning experience, to get people involved, kids involved.
Well, not that you're looking for another committee to join. So that's it from me.
All right, well, thank you. Dawn, finance and operations.
Yes, and I can say firsthand, I probably almost get every other week an email from the Down to Earth group of ideas they have. So I do credit them so we lost our long-standing pig farmer, as we call them, pick up our food waste, but it was that committee that actually found our replacement group, a compost company that's coming in and doing our recycling for us. And that's where the idea of the trays too, because Janelle Madden has listened to these kids over the years, and we do buy the food trays that are compostable, but we weren't doing it right. So part of it was that we learned that they do this at the elementary, because they have all the recycling parent groups that help them in the lunch line. So if we can grab them and keep that momentum going at the middle school, then it won't be that we have to teach them every year. So Jack Green and that group then said, spearheaded the idea to have the assemblies and sort of train people as to how we can best get rid of our waste that's
Can I ask
environmentally friendly.
An incredibly stupid question. In the Lindquist, in the cafeteria, there's those bins, and they say different things.
Right.
And none of them make any sense to me. Do they make sense as to what is supposed to go where? Because I've spent a lot of time over
Plastic
the years
versus
there.
paper.
Yeah.
The most
Yeah.
recent ones do, because they actually have visuals.
Are they new
Yeah.
ones?
Brand new, within a week.
Great.
Brand new, and they literally, the food items and the different items that we use in the cafeteria, they have actual pictures of those.
Pictures on top of the
So the little
barrel.
And it's been an adjustment, hasn't it? It's
Yeah,
been an
sure,
adjustment for
sure.
the kids, but they're taking it seriously.
Yeah, I'm sure that's great, because I couldn't understand.
But also, most of our recycling bins that we have here are single stream. So as long as it doesn't have to be as segregated anymore.
Oh.
But the key thing is it has to be in a plastic bag, clear plastic bag. But you can do single stream, so we don't have to do paper or plastic.
But here's the thing about that. That makes us all feel a lot better. But don't
Right.
listen to Joe Ruxton if you want to be able to sleep at night, because basically that stuff is ending up in piles in other parts of the world. literally islands filled with our recyclables.
Yeah.
So her full message was, stop using so much of single-use plastics. Yes, recycling is a good thing. Reuse is better. And that should be our message. And you know, Dawn's been awesome trying to reduce waste of paper. It is something that we need to think about collectively when we think about our, you know, for years, Dover-Sherborn has been bring your own device. We batted around the one-to-one, but we have not pursued that. But one of the side impacts of not being one-to-one is that a lot of stuff has to get printed out for the kids who don't have computers. And many of those kids actually have computers at home. They just don't go to school in a culture where it's insisted upon that you bring your computer to school. That everyone has to have a computer. So it's something that we have been thinking about and need to continue processing. But we use a lot of paper. And the kids have shared with us exactly how much. What was
Jack Green was a two-sheet.
Oh, Jack told us just how many acres of forest we're responsible for.
Yeah.
Well, and teachers are frustrated too. You know, but the use of paper, but also the time at the photocopy machine and all of that, and how life.
Which we also pay a lot for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll see it in the budget. When you see that line, you can see it's expensive.
In that vein, so we've been reaching out to all the groups that we make packets for. So I think our latest, we've pretty much got school committee either on a individual-based hard copy or looking at it online. And now we've reached out to the other groups that we provide packets to sort of streamline that. And then we actually, a lot of you did bring back your old budget books. So you will notice that this year, all the budget books that we're giving to the administrators and to school committees are actually all reused budget books.
Is
So
there still time to return one?
I was
Or
gonna
is
say,
it
have
have-
we still have, we can take, bring them, just bring them to the
Yes.
office?
Let's
right.
reuse
So we realize that you
I've
don't
gotten
need a
several.
new one every. So we have. So some of them might have a little plaquing
We're good.
one, but
Oh, I'll bring
that's
mine
our
back.
initiative. So if anything, it makes us feel better because we're not spending all the money to buy new binders every year for everybody. So that's been very successful. So we're not buying any this year for everything that we need. And a couple of years ago, we already cut back too on what we actually provide all the members of the 2 warrant advisory groups. So we're going to circle back with them and see if we can trim that even more. Because I mean, it just makes sense not to create what we don't need.
We also set the example. So as I think to myself, I'm disappointed with myself, but I'm going to keep trying. You'll see more reusable drinks, more use of the laptop as opposed to needing the paper file.
You can't keep using that. I'll expect to see that same bottle next meeting.
So to that point too, I went and my report was coming out on 2 pages. So I said, where can I take out all the extra spaces so I get on 1 page? So that's why the top seems really scrunched because I now this is my new motivation. So you have in your packet your general fund revenues and status of appropriations as of October 31st. Not a lot has changed since we last met. So some of the descriptions or the sentences may seem a little repetitive, but I still think it's helpful to have it in there. So I have to keep reminding you. So on the revenue side, it's exactly the same. On the salary side, if you compare your statement in September 30th to October 31st, you will notice that we have booked a few of the shared employee positions between the 2 months. We have several maternity leaves, as I noted. Some of them have sort of closed out in that if they're on maternity leave, we've already given them their 6 to 8 weeks of maternity pay. If they take additional time, then their salary comes off of our books and their substitute shows up in the substitute line. I still have a few that are still getting paid, so their whole salary is in there. So that's why you still see a negative variance in the teacher salary. Other than that, the new piece of financial information that I have to share with you tonight is that we have looked at our current projections for both active and retiree health insurance. So as of our current census of October 31st, we're projecting a positive variance in that line item of approximately $140,000. I can't press enough how that can change at a moment's notice because our average family plan probably cost the district between $20,000 and $22,000. So even though that seems like a big number, it doesn't take too many new people coming on to absorb that variance. So I throw it out there for now. That's where it stands, but that could potentially continue to be weeded away as we know we see some of our younger teaching staff turn 26 and come on our plan. And we still have some open positions that we're hiring for who can come on and take insurance. So I put it out there lightly, but that's a good thing. Some of that is because we also didn't know how the participation was going to go the second year of our high deductible and benchmark plans, but I'm pleased to report that we actually saw very little change in that 50-50 enrollment that we had. Because that change in enrollment I had to put a little buffer for because it's about a 15% increase between the two, our cost between the two plans. So we weren't really sure how that was going to go. The retiree savings does reflect the first adjustment in the cost share percentage. That first 5% kicks in January 2020. They're in open enrollment right now, but I don't expect too much fluctuation in that. The other thing that can give us positive variances in retirees is when we do have 15 to 20 retirees who are of a certain age, or they still have family members, so they carry the family more expensive plans. As they roll off, that provides quite a bit of savings in that line item. So we did see some of those, and we probably will see some of those as the year progresses. So all good news on that front. We haven't had time to completely look at our projections yet for utilities, but we will have that for you in December, because we'll do that obviously to make sure we can incorporate good projections for your 21 budget. Other than that, I repeated some of the variances that we had already noted in September, just to keep them fresh in here.
Which is helpful. I appreciate when you do that. That's really helpful.
Because
I forget. Yep.
Any questions?
When do you get notification of retirements, and are you expecting any big changes that will impact budget in terms of retirements?
Right. So as you recall from our educator contract, there is a potential for a longevity enhancement payment if they let us know by October 1st, and then don't change their mind by February 1st.
Yep.
So we really don't roll those out. That's sort of privately they let us know.
Okay.
So I won't roll out those retirement impacts in your December budget. We usually wait till your next budget in January to start rolling those out.
Okay.
So that's how that works. But if someone has already taken advantage of some of the longer standing teachers might have already taken advantage of our old enhancement, which was the 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, they don't have any kind of deadline to let us know.
Okay.
So we still have some of those teachers around that could retire and without giving notification. So, but I think in all the buildings, we've had initial reach out from like one or two in each building.
Okay.
So we'll see how that all, because they can definitely change their minds. So that's why we don't really.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I will note that I've talked with Dawn, we're going to be trying to schedule a budget workshop for early December. I'll be in touch with you. So thank you in advance for agreeing to meet with us. I appreciate that. Okay, let's get to the discussion on the program of studies. Mr. Smith and Mr.
So as some of you know, we have an organization, a group that's called Academic Standards, and they are made up of some department chairs, some members of guidance, some teaching faculty, and they're really the sounding board and the filter for any new potential courses or changes in programming that we may have that coincide with the changing of our program of studies, which ultimately comes to your desk for approval. So this year, we've already met 3 times, and we have another scheduled meeting. And please understand that we're already talking next year, and we really are like 10 weeks into school. So it's certainly a daunting challenge. But one of the things that we've already approved at Academic Standards, and we'll be bringing forth as a proposal for your consideration in our program of studies, will be an advanced placement computer science course. Also in the wellness department, a sport nutrition course that would be designed for not just people who are playing sports, but kind of looking at nutrition as it pertains to people who are training or working on a goal, or say they want to, run a 5K, whatever it might be, but it'll be a course that will be designed around the nutritional aspect of things. It gives our students a different opportunity to learn more about, lifelong learning with their own bodies. We also have approved the seal of biliteracy with Ms. McCoy and Mr. Ferris, the World Language Department Chair. We also have had some really strong and serious considerations for adding some of the elective courses, which currently are not in the GPA, but adding them to the GPA in the case of some honors or some second tier courses. And by that, what I mean is, let's say, for example, we had let's take, could be a science and engineering course that they're taking as a science credit. In those cases there, we would place it into the GPA, but we're talking about even at the honors level of giving students that opportunity. So we've had long conversations about this because there's really two camps to it. And it's not that teachers are against it. We also want to have the open option of exploratory. So let's say if somebody wants to take guitar and they just want to learn how to play guitar, right? It's different. It might be a different kind of challenge, a different opportunity for them. We think that putting that into the GPA may put some undue pressure into a kid, especially if you're trying to assess the kid who has never played guitar before. However, if you had an advanced guitar course or something like that, or pre-AP studio art is one of the prime examples, we do feel like that should be included in the GPA because that's something that a student has a lot of passion for, and it may be something that they want to pursue post-secondary education. So we're trying to work out what that's going to look like and where. We want to make sure it doesn't penalize kids who just want an exploratory course, but we also think about other courses where providing that opportunity would be really beneficial for a kid because they put a lot of time and effort into such courses. So that's one thing. And then we're working within science to perhaps offer an introductory physics course for grade 9. It would not be our typical physics course that we offer junior and senior year. This would be just a different route for some students where they line up with their mathematics in middle school. The introductory physics may be a more manageable process for them as they're developing their math skills so that they can still continue on with biology and chemistry. It would just be set by 1 year. And it would be more of the introductory physics would be for really a small cohort of students. So if it's a strong science student, you wouldn't necessarily take that course. But the introductory physics is what is offered at a lot of high schools as another means of science for kids who might need greater support. It's a different type of physics course that the Museum of Science has incorporated as opposed to what we traditionally offer as physics to juniors and seniors, which is more of a college level course. So those are some of the things that are going to be kind of coming your way for your consideration. Those are things that, even though it's only 3 or 4, there have been several conversations and going back and forth and guidance input because we also want to make sure that whatever we do, we're not adding additional undue stress to kids. So on the one hand, we want to maintain that rigor. On the other hand, we want to maintain that balance.
You're itching. Go ahead, Michael.
Not itching. Anybody else want to?
Well, I'll take a turn.
Go ahead, Michael.
Okay. One probably isn't fair because I didn't give a heads up, but it just kind of came to mind around my understanding is that colleges will kind of do their own calculation of GPA. They'll look at all the classes and they'll unweight. They'll perhaps give credit for some classes GPA-wise where that's not how it's done. It's like they all have their proprietary way of how they go about evaluating the program of studies that a particular student is taking or the the course load. Is that
That is accurate. The one caveat to that is they also then will look at Dover-Sherborn or Wellesley or Weston or whatever school they're looking at, and also look at their program to see where that level of rigor is within the opportunities. So on the one hand, I mean, we have had conversations about GPA and weighted and unweighted and all that. We've had those conversations. There is no doubt that they recalculate in many cases, but they also take our scale and place that into their overall picture when they look at us as a school as opposed to maybe a different school. So we just need to be careful that if we went down a road of a unweighted GPA or just eliminated it, that we would want to make sure, because our guidance department is not sure right now, that that couldn't potentially have a negative effect on some of our kids.
Well, it would really need to be clear in the program of studies.
Right, and phased in.
The level of these
Right,
courses.
yeah.
But I have heard that same thing
Sure.
over the years, that because every school has a different GPA, I mean, you could literally look at the 10 neighboring schools and their GPA may not look like ours.
they're all over the place?
And because of that, they have no choice but to recalculate. But I do think that they have a very strong sense of what our rigorous courses are. We had a long debate when I was a principal about unweighting.
Right.
There are arguments for both cases. It's one of those topics.
It's a
that
can
can
of
go
worms.
50-50
For sure.
if you know
And
what
so,
I mean.
so
Major
I mean,
community
clearly,
discussion.
So, but maybe just something to bubble up. And I mean, I know that Wayland has actually, in connection with, I think, both Challenge Success and their start time, they've Wayland, Lexington.
Unweighted?
Yep. Lexington, I believe they're either looking at it or they've done something. Newton is looking at it, and I know they've recently this year made a presentation to I think it was school committee. So maybe just something for out years to be.
No, there's
to be
no doubt.
looking
And
at.
and just 2 days ago when we had academic standards, that was one of the agenda items, this whole concept of where are we with it. So we constantly come back and discuss it. You know, Wayland's, interesting enough, not that long ago was still ranking. So schools will make their adjustments, and we haven't ranked students in a long time. Now, that being said, I'm sure students and their parents can figure out kind of where they fall. Of course they can. They can figure things out. But we don't publish, that, whereas Wayland was just a few years ago. So, schools will make their decisions and will make their adjustments as they see fit. And I'm not opposed to it, but I think we need to do a lot more research and homework on it before we go down that road, because we want to be sure that we're not negatively impacting our kids. Because let's face it, I'm a huge supporter of child success, but I still want our kids to be competitive when it comes to these schools and colleges.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's an obligation I have, and until the rules of colleges and universities truly change, we have to just be careful and make incremental changes, because as much as the colleges and universities are singing certain songs, in reality, they're still doing what they're doing. Stanford, I love their Child Success program. They deny more kids than anyone in the entire nation of any school. And I think it's a badge of honor for them. I really, truly do. And I think that's wrong. But schools like Harvard are saying we now are going to look at this holistic approach, okay?
What does that mean?
I'm going to question that, because I sometimes will say, interesting. This kid seems to have everything that they would ask for yet
GPA.
There's a quota of certain fencing kid, or a kid that maybe is a vocalist, or a kid who's, so they're looking at making sure they can get everything they get. And it becomes a difficult game for our kids. It really does. That's my rant. Sorry.
So that was the tough one. The easier one.
Oh, that was all right. That wasn't bad.
Virtual high school.
Yes.
Just how's that going? Is
Yeah.
there going to be an expansion of either seats or, well, I guess it's broadly available.
It is. So thanks to Ms. Vittori, we have set up a system where we've got a block of seats, and then if we found that we were exceeding that, I would go to Dawn and say, here's what our need is. So she has been gracious to sort of build a platform for that while not overspending, but making sure that kids don't lose out on opportunities. And it's interesting. It's actually gone pretty well. Today we actually talked about in the program of studies of really highlighting the add drop time period, because virtual high school has a different add drop period. So you can register for their courses a little bit earlier. And now that our guidance counselors have this second year in it, I think they're going to be a lot more proactive in sort of seeking out kids to say, hey, I really think this is something you ought to do. Their add drop is different simply because with us, we start a little bit later. They start their programming a little earlier because they have to coincide with schools across the country. And as you know, southern schools, some Midwestern schools start their school years earlier. So it's actually gone very well. I think some kids initially, there was a little bit of a struggle trying to figure out some things, the coordination, all of that. But I think we've settled in pretty nicely. In some cases, we've had to receive some additional resources that they'll mail to us. They still, in some cases, use I was talking about sustainability, a hard textbook, which we're hoping that eventually they eliminate entirely. But right now, they're still
ironic, right?
It really is, right? A lot of their programming is. So I think it's a really exciting opportunity. And what it has actually done, it's been a benefit to our community. For students who in the past maybe wanted to take Johns Hopkins or Stanford online because they had exhausted their mathematical or their science opportunities here, the families no longer have to be on the hook for paying for those courses. They can still take those courses if they wish, because it's still
more
within
advanced beyond where we are.
Yes, and that's what Stanford and Johns Hopkins were, and they're very, very good. But the virtual high school also offers advanced placement courses. They are fully accredited, and our students can take an AP. So we actually have a few kids who are signed up for advanced placement courses. Some kids are taking standard courses or honors. There's a multitude of opportunities, and we would then sponsor that test. So we would proctor it and all of that. So it's actually gone quite well, and I've been pleased.
How many do you know?
12.
12.
Was that the number of seats that we were planning to have available in our
We
first
talked about
rollout?
more at first, but in the end, I think, sometimes.
We realized the price point, we locked in at the best price point, but then we confirmed with them that we can add seats as we need it. So you don't have to go because you guys said go get more, so they did. But when we went to pay for it, we're like, I think there's probably a smarter way to do this. We verified that we could add but it's the first year out, so
this is something that will catch on.
Right.
Yeah, it will. At one of my former districts, we actually had 75 kids enrolled. And we went to a different model where we actually had teachers in our building teaching one of those courses. So you can do
25 seats.
Yeah, 20. That's how you receive 25 seats if you offer one of your teachers a 0.2. But it comes at a cost to the district. I mean, it's a real investment, and you have to make sure that you're going to really use those numbers. I'd like to see it build up. I don't know if we'll ever go to that model necessarily, but that is a potential option if this really took off. The other thing is the AP courses are full year, and all the other courses are semesterized. Interesting. The AP, the full year courses, the kids get a break just like they would at college. So at December 17th, the course stops and doesn't start up again until January 8th.
Wow.
So it's kind of interesting. Now, how that translates then into their performance and a bunch of different things, we'll have to look at the data and see.
I think it's fantastic that we're offering this, though, because this is going to be available to kids in increasing numbers.
Yeah, blended learning will be common practice for kids a few years down the road, if it isn't already.
College now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just one follow-up. Yeah. Is that a school year only curriculum?
It is. They do offer a summer program. That primarily is catch up. It's retention, basically.
Credit recovery.
Yeah, some credit recovery. And right now we are not in that program, so that would be an additional cost. but families can opt for that as an option.
That's
So
a nice
potentially opportunities for kids who might have missed part of the year or.
Yeah, exactly. So they don't necessarily offer that full catalog of courses through the summer because if you think of who's teaching it,
Sure.
teachers in public schools or private schools across the country, and they're on break.
We have TECA for that too, right?
Yeah, we do. And we also offer Grad Point, too, for some kids for credit recovery. So we've got like 3 or 4 different things that we use. Occasionally, we'll have a student take a course with BYU online as well. So we're flexible with that. However they can get to the finish line, we're willing to work with them on a wide, variety. Sometimes we do that with students who leave for ski school or equestrian or whatever, and we can help fill things in for them that way too. Yeah, thank you.
I was just going to say, kind of on a personal note, but so my daughter, who's a senior, is taking AP French online, and so far so good. For her, it was not that she couldn't take it here; it was a scheduling issue because we are fairly small, and I think there's only one actual AP French class
In every language.
Which
Yeah.
Which and French even last year seemed to always conflict with chorus, and those are her people. Like she just loves chorus, was at the jazz brunch, and she wasn't able to take chorus last year, and this year her guidance counselor said, well, would you consider this? And so she is doing it, and a good friend is also, they happen to not be in the same virtual class, which is really funny, but they can support each other on figuring out things. And another thing that we didn't anticipate is that because there are people all over the country in her class, some of the because it's AP French, it's all in French, but she's having to do a group presentation on current politics, which are tricky topics anyway, and the viewpoints are, I think, far more diverse than what we might find here. So it's been interesting to hear her talk about that. So.
That's great.
And she's in chorus.
Right.
Good.
So, yeah.
Music and.
Right, music and. Yeah, and so that was one of the other, we wrote into the write-up for it that they couldn't take a virtual high school course of a course that we already offered here unless they had an unavoidable conflict, and we felt like your daughters and there's 2 or 3 other kids who that was the situation. Yeah, and it makes sense.
I'm glad that you felt chorus was unavoidable. Thank you.
That solves a big problem for us, though, as a small
really
school
does.
system.
Yeah.
And a lot of
really
small
missed it
schools have
last
found
year.
this to be beneficial because there's only so many sections you can offer.
Yep.
That's one of the disadvantages of being small, and the conflicts, the singletons.
I will say the performing arts, they have done a fantastic job, and they continue to be strong advocates. There isn't probably a week that doesn't go by that Mr. Herman and Miss Barry aren't at my door saying, what do you think about? And I love that. And it shows actually in the jazz brunch. Look at those groups.
Yeah,
Look at the size of the 2 acapellas now and the concert choir.
Jazz band also.
Jazz band,
just
yeah.
over a year.
And Janice
All
keeps
grown.
thinking, oh my goodness, if I have 2 more kids, I actually have a full group. And, so.
Well, and the current 6th grade band is really big. Because I'm a
great.
6th grader, but
They start in the middle school.
they're
at my door as
building,
well.
the elementary school. They're
Which is
building-
They are.
It's
No, they
fantastic.
are. And
They're
he's
advocating
got
for those-
excellent
for those
educators
kids.
for that program, too. Tom is fantastic.
They're going to visit a very large program in Texas with their ticket to travel, and so I think they're going to have bigger ideas when they come back because Texas.
All right, I better
No big
prepare
Texas,
myself for
right?
Janice. Better get ready for Janice.
Office hours.
Yeah, that's right.
That's great. Yes, Maggie.
I first of all applaud all the things that you've said so far, from the courses that you're adding, from the thoughtful analysis of whether or not to put things into GPAs. I appreciate the understanding of nuance that's clearly going on with this academic standards committee, and so thank you to all of that. Are there courses that these are some nice additions? Are there things that we've had to let go of in order to pay for these? How are we incorporating these things into our program? What's going on?
Yeah, so every year, it's tight. It's always tight. We try to also maintain a decent balance in our enrollment in, let's say, take science, for example. So if we add a new science course, what does that mean for biology and chemistry and physics? In the area of technology and engineering, I'm going to be asking for a 0.2 increase in computer science. I'll just put it out there. Now, if we receive that, that's great, and we can do it. If we don't, we can still offer AP Computer Science. We would have to reconfigure some things, and we might lose a course. But what we might do is look at a course that maybe is under-enrolled or something that we could offer every other year. When it's a small school, you have to get creative that way so that you don't eliminate opportunities. You just sort of manipulate them a little bit to say, we're not going to offer it this year, but then maybe next year, the iOS app course will run, but it won't run this year so that we can run, AP Computer Science. So, yep.
I just had one quick clarification point. So the courses that you're thinking of, whether it should be counted in the GPA or not, that would be set in stone, or were you talking about students could potentially opt to have it count? Or
we would probably determine which courses. Guidance feels more comfortable in determining up front which courses they would be, just so that kids and their parents and guardians would know that this is a course for that. Jeff Herman sits on the academic standards and raised some really great points, and he said, I don't want to discourage a kid who does want to just take Guitar 1 for an exploratory purpose. And he said, obviously, I'm grading that student differently from a student who is, a talented guitarist, because I'm looking at their rubric I'm measuring them in different ways, obviously, right? So I think that was his only concern, and that's our concern. We don't want to lose that, take the course for the love of learning, yet we also want to have some of these courses be designated as going into the GPA because we feel as though that would be fair to those kids. So I do think we're leaning towards the route of designating what they were so that people know up front. But it's a good point. Maybe we do get to a point where, we give an offering and we try to figure it out. We just want to make sure that we're not hampering kids in their choices.
Which I appreciate.
Right.
So thank you for that. And thank you so much for getting the AP Computer Science. Very excited.
Yep. Yeah, and Nick Rout deserves a lot of credit for that. He's been working hard. Beth McCoy's worked really hard in promoting that. And yeah, we actually have kids doing AP Computer Science virtual high school.
Yeah.
So we certainly have the caliber of kid to do it. And it's exciting to see, just some of the different things that our kids can do. And, down the road, I'd also like to see us venture into some business offerings too. When I think about our community and the number of people who are in finance or marketing or entrepreneurship and those types of things, that may be something that we might want to consider. Now we have to balance it, right? And I know Don's thinking, okay, John, slow down. But we do have to balance it for the budget. But on the other hand, we also then have to look at, who we serve, and we serve kids who are going into some of those business fields too. So it wouldn't be suddenly we create a 4-person business department, but it may be in conjunction with virtual high school, and then maybe we have somebody who can teach 1 or 2 courses who also might be a math member or a social studies department member, just looking at creativity that way.
And so sometimes I guess the virtual high school may be able to inform what may make sense to kind of bring in-house, right? When you have
absolutely will.
Particular courses that are very popular.
It's a great data point for that, because kids will say, hey, I really would like to take a course in, what is popular is marketing, entrepreneurship, in the business areas, sometimes finance,
economics.
My last school, and we offer that. We do offer an economics course that is taught by a math department member.
AP?
Not AP economics, no. But we do have an honors and
But a kid could pursue, that's a good example of something that a kid could pursue, AP micro or macro.
Yep.
Through virtual high school.
Yes, they could. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good
Well,
point.
I took accounting in high school, and that's why I am where I am.
There you go.
Because, right, I explored it and wasn't afraid to take it at college, so. It's amazing all the stuff that we took back in high school, right? When we, like, how did it all work?
Yeah.
We used to have bookkeeping here at
Oh,
Dover-Sherborn.
back, yes.
Yeah,
I would
bookkeeping.
love home ec though.
All
All right. Oh, yes, Lynn.
That's cool.
Have we had in the past, or have we considered sort of a life skills class? And what made me think of that was my daughter spent a great deal of her government class learning about mortgages. And I mean, she understands like nobody's business that, the mortgage crisis,
Right.
The early 2000s. And I think it's given her a lot of practical and sort of, financial knowledge that she wouldn't have otherwise had. And she has said, it would be great if we had a class on that maybe also included how to balance a checkbook, which maybe we as, parents ought to be doing that.
How to do your laundry.
Yeah, how to do your laundry.
So there are financial literacy opportunities that exist. Sometimes like Needham Bank will bring people in actually and work with our faculty members on that. Our math department is actually this year researching and next year going to be proposing a course for seniors around financial literacy. But we're not ready yet, but we are going to be delving into that as a semester-based course. We then have to find something else that goes opposite that so that we can have the balance of it.
One of the most useful courses that I found for my kids was it must be a wellness course where they teach them basic life skills like how to change a tire, but it's a wide range.
Yep.
But it's along the same vein.
We have that in wellness, yep.
Yeah.
And there is another course called What's Next, and it's for seniors, and it addresses all the different things of the next stages of their life, whether they're going off to college or getting their first apartment or going into the workforce, and it does incorporate some of those things. It's a little bit limited just because it's only one section, so we'd like to have an opportunity where we have more of a formal financial literacy plug-in. That's actually even something that through advisory you could do something, or even through this flex block where you could bring people in from the community to have everyone exposed to those topics, even if you couldn't fit it in your day-to-day course, because that's the constraint we have. I tell our students there's so many great things about the size of our school. Maybe one of the downsides is our size sometimes causes constraints with singleton courses. Everything else is great. Personalization, smaller groups, just people know people, and there's just so many advantages. That's the one tricky part, but maybe with this flex time, we can bring in a financial literacy expert. We've had some different groups that have come through, and I just haven't really seen enough to really say, yeah, this is valuable to, incorporate as a full course, but I know that they're out there.
There is a good model, John, that I saw in my previous district where they worked with, it was actually organized by like the Business Alliance from that community, but a lot of banks participated in the process. But basically all these businesses, local businesses, worked together to put on a day.
Yep.
And it was probably more like an afternoon for juniors and seniors who had a budget, and this is how much money you have, and here's where you can go and buy these things. And if nothing else, it gives the kids a real snapshot of just how difficult it is to balance utilities and an apartment and insurance, and they have to actually go through this process. It's kind of cool. They do it in one, like in the Stonehill Gymnasium. It was really well received. That might be something if you have people who are interested to go and catch. Okay. I think that's for a small school, that might be the best we can do. Sometimes it's hard to just build a course in that everyone's going to take, and yet we know financial literacy is important, and that's not a bad way to approach it.
I'm also going to be trying to locate some industry experts for seminar day in the area of financial literacy too. And we have that coming up this April.
That's a good idea. Thank you so much. I love the conversation, like when there's a chance to really dig a little bit deeper. I think that's great. Would it be okay if people have ideas or further thoughts, they share them with me, and then we can pass them
Yeah, so remember, this
Not
was
necessarily
why,
even for this year, but for sort of future.
but this is why we did this, because in the past, you'd get the program of studies and the work was already done, and we built this time in to really give John an opportunity to hear what's on the minds of school committee members, so it doesn't just seem such a disconnect that just kind of gets plopped in front of you for your stamp of approval, because it is, in fact, part of the school committee's responsibility to approve the program of studies, so you should know what's in it.
That's true, and we appreciate hearing your perspective, because there's a lot, you're thinking about a lot of stuff that doesn't show in the program of studies, so that's
the
really helpful
realities
for
of
us
it,
to-
right? Yep.
Right, yeah, right. Reality does sometimes impede. All right, moving along, since it's after 8, we've got the ACED recommendations. Can I just really quickly say that we are really fortunate to have so many educators who give time and energy to students through clubs and activities without compensation, so it's outside of their contracted duties.
And sorry to interrupt.
Oh.
Can you, Asa, can you explain what the
Advisory Committee for Extra Duties.
Thank you.
Does that sound right?
Extra duties.
Extra duties.
Yeah, that's,
It's basically a committee that's put together to work with the teachers and representatives of the administration to kind of to look at these clubs and extra activities and determine whether or not they can be funded. And then we go through this process that's required by contract, the ACED, correct? And yes, and with a kind of a timeline. And then I come forward to you with the recommendations of the committee.
And so committees, activities, which I think I explained in the email I sent out, have to meet certain requirements. They have to have been running for a certain number of years. They need to have maintained a certain number of students, just to make sure that it's something that's really viable.
Right.
Thank you.
So these ratios are multiplied by a figure that's set also in the contract. Unfortunately, I can't remember what it is.
A
Is it
little over 1,500.
1,500? For every 1.0,
Math over here.
there's a $1,500 compensation. So if it's 2, obviously it's 3,000. So the 3 that we brought forward, we have a high school choral director and a music director for our musicals at the high school. But we do not formally, in Appendix C, have them for the middle school. And I believe people have been getting compensated, but not directly through our process, maybe through the parent organization, but the I guess
Activities
student activities.
from the ticket revenue.
But we just want to formalize that. We want to formalize the amount so that it's consistent with the high school and that it does come out of the ticket receipts. And so that's really all this is. It's just not formally in Appendix C, and it should be.
Can I? So what you're doing then is, this is for the musical at the middle school, correct?
Just one of them. Just the middle
school musical
director.
No,
The choral director
is something different.
is for, isn't it
It's
for
also,
chorus?
it's
Part of the plan.
it's
Part of the plan.
Part of the
Okay.
It's Artis and
Noteworthy
it's
stuff.
Artis and Jeff. It's those 2 positions,
Okay.
right? Okay, because up to this point, few people have known that. So this is a change in the way the musicals at the middle school will be financed, because up to this point, there was a stipend, I believe, for the director, but then everything else came out of the budget that they put together for all of the concessions and all of that they would sell.
So I guess.
And ticket sales, yes?
And
That is still where it's going to be funded.
Right. It's still where it's going to be funded from, but
being formalized.
when you say they, who's they?
The director. The director will
Right.
put together a budget for the play,
Right.
and then they bring in the
And
revenues.
so that amount could fluctuate?
I don't know what, I think it can, yeah.
Right, and that's what concerns me. I think it should be consistent
completely
with the high
agree with
school.
you.
That was the rationale.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think I am speaking in support of it.
No, I know.
And I think it's great because, parents are very involved and nobody can understand. They understand the model at the middle school, then they get to high school and they can't figure out the model.
Right.
So this is really great.
Right. It's just one of those things, Judy, where
Yeah.
we know the people are being compensated, but we want them to be compensated consistently.
Perfect.
And this was discussed with the whole ACED, and everyone seemed to agree, of which Scott and John are both members, and everyone seems to agree that this was something that really, so that it going from 0 to 2.0 was just basically building up to where it should be. And I was surprised to learn that the middle school musical is, in most people's eyes, a bigger production than the high school.
Yeah.
Is that true?
It has more kids.
More kids.
It has more
Okay.
kids, and it sells out consistently. So it generally has higher ticket revenue.
So am I to understand that with regard to those first two positions, they're revenue neutral because you're already paying these people and we're still going to use the fundraising from the proceeds?
Correct.
So there's no additional cost to us?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the choral director and music director. Noteworthy is one of our a cappella groups that has really done well, I think, in the time that I've been here, and has never been acknowledged in Appendix C because it was sort of kid-run. It started that way?
Yeah, and it started smaller. It was another opportunity for kids to become part of a group. There was, I think, some concern that Alcoda was a little exclusive, and they were looking for another inclusive opportunity. Yep. And by creating two, they both have grown and are both really important, viable a cappella groups.
And so we see that it should be a position just like
I have to tell you, I was the president of FOPA at the time that Noteworthy was created, and it was fabulous because it gave kids who were maybe slightly less committed, or not less committed. Go ahead, Ann.
Well, yeah, it gave opportunity for kids who felt that they'd been excluded. Noteworthy's not cut, so they felt they'd been excluded. There's some really committed, really, really talented kids who, for whatever reason, and because it happens. I mean, it happens everywhere. Yeah. You don't make a team, you don't make a. So it was just offering another opportunity.
Yeah.
But being inclusive is something that we have kind of hung our hat on around here. We think it's important. We don't want any of our kids feeling as if they have to scratch and claw to be part of the system.
Yeah,
I think I'm thrilled.
It's the cross country of vocal groups.
Right.
I'm thrilled that the high school can support that two a cappella groups are thriving, and that this group is thriving, because I remember when it was a fledgling group started by a couple of kids, and
those kids should be proud today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell their parents.
So those are the positions.
Not specific to these, but are the ACED stipends? I mean, I know it's part of the contract, so every 3 years they're looked at. But to the extent there
every
is
year.
It's so to the extent there's a particular program that has gone from gangbusters to it's kind of a really doesn't have a lot of legs left. Periodically, do some of these stipends come off as well?
Yeah, so unfortunately, this list was a lot longer, but through the process, we have a lot of conversations about which ones we can support at this time, which ones we cannot, and through the Appendix C review, that was a really important thing that the school committee and the Educators Association worked on together, because in that they did a whole reassessment and realignment, frankly, of some of our, especially around athletics and the stipends for athletics. And this is why when some things were put forward in athletics, and we couldn't help but say, well, wait a second, we just did a deep dive on this a year ago. A really deep dive on the alignments, and a lot of thought was put into that with the AD and some other representatives on the Appendix C committee. So we really feel like right now Appendix C is in good shape. And that's why we haven't moved a lot of things forward. The other kind of rule of thumb is we want to make sure something has staying power. I can't tell you how many times as a principal I saw a Frisbee club come and go. You know, it's like, well, it happens to be popular with this particular group of kids. They graduate and it's gone, or rugby, or, you know, so we like to make sure the thing has some sustainability before we.
And just because it's an appendix C doesn't mean it's filled every year.
Right.
Right.
It's the, right, so, yeah.
Okay, and the only other point I'd like to make is that it's about the position, making it clear it's not about the person filling the position, because it's.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
So is there a motion?
Yes, I was just going to get to that. Do I hear a motion to accept the ACID recommendations as stated? 2.0 for middle school choral director, 2.0 for middle school music director, and 1.0 for the advisor to noteworthy.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Discussion. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you,
All
guys.
right, thank
Thanks.
you. All right, the consent agenda. Are there any questions about the minutes from October 9th or the donations? No? Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda? Do I hear a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you very much. Got the communications. Did anybody have any questions about the communications? I had a quick one. Last year, we got a more thorough, gave more information and broke it out from just threes and above on the APs to a wider, I think all of the numbers, all the scores, or wider range.
That's in here.
The whole thing? I only saw 3 and above, I think. Okay, I'll have to go back and look.
Okay. It's in here.
All right, I'll go back and look. Sorry, I missed it.
Sorry.
Yeah, my bad. A quick note for our next meeting is December 10th. It starts at 6, followed by a joint at 7, so please put that in your calendar. And it will be starring Dawn Fattori and the first draft of the budget. Okay, I would love to adjourn and then a poll to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to, not what I wrote down, with respect to superintendent contract, not to return to open session. Kate, Lynn, say yes. Michael, Judy,
Yes.
Maggie, me. All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Scott, John.